Hello, welcome to the European Open briefing for Monday, January the 9th, 2017. I'm Rafi Boyajian, currency analyst at xm.com, and we're going to be looking at what's happening in the currency markets today. So we have a bit more activity this morning as markets return to normal. Although Tokyo is still closed for national holiday today, we're seeing the dollar extend Friday's gains. We had some fairly positive non-farm payrolls report out last week for December. Another big mover today is the UK pound, and it follows some comments by the British Prime Minister at an interview yesterday where she hinted that the UK is headed towards a hard Brexit. Also, the Australian dollar is firmer this morning following some positive building approvals data out of Australia. And the Canadian dollar is steadier today after well, it basically reversed Friday's gains. So on the one hand, the Canadian dollar benefited from some positive, very strong Canadian data. On the other hand, we're seeing the dollar recover, so that limited the loonies gains. So let's begin today's briefing with the dollar-yen pair. We can see that the dollar has recovered rather well since last Thursday following the payrolls report out on Friday. The dollar is back above the 117 level against the yen. On Friday we had the December non-farm payrolls report, which showed that the US economy added 156,000 jobs, and this compares with forecasts of 178,000. Although the figure was below estimates, we did see a very sharp upward revision for November's figure from 178 to 204,000. The unemployment rate did edge up though from 4.6% to 4.7%, mainly due to more people entering the workforce. On the other hand, what caught investors' attention was the stronger than expected increase in average earnings. It rose by 0.4% month on month versus forecast of a 0.3% increase, and this basically is pointing to a pickup in inflationary pressures in the US economy, which suggests that the Fed will likely raise rates by probably at least twice in 2017, and most likely more than that. Of course, that all depends on whether or not we do see a fiscal stimulus in the US. But for now, the US has been boosted by that data. It's not such a good story for the UK pound. However, the pound is sharply down this morning. It dropped below the 1.22 level against the dollar, hitting a 10-week low. The euro is also up 1% against the pound, and this comes after the UK Prime Minister Theresa May. There was an interview on Sky TV yesterday where she said that UK cannot be expected to keep bits of EU membership once it leaves, and this fueled the expectation that the UK will probably is probably headed for a hard Brexit, meaning that the UK will no longer be part of the single market. And also May hinted that she indicated that regaining control over immigration and exiting jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, those were her priorities. Let's move on to other currencies now. Let's have a quick look at the Chinese yuan, because there was some volatility last week for the yuan. We can see that there was that big spike downwards for the dollar yuan pair. The yuan hit the highest point since early mid-December, and that follows after a stronger midpoint last week by the People's Bank of China. But we see the People's Bank of China has backtracked now, and today it's at a midpoint 0.9% weaker at 6.9262. That's significantly weaker than the around 6.87 last week, and it follows a stronger dollar this week. And also we had some data on Saturday that showed China's currency reserves fell to 6-year low. That points to the fact that the Chinese central bank is fairly active in intervening in the currency markets to slow the yuan's descent against the dollar. But despite that volatility, the yuan is fairly steady this morning. It's a little bit firmer at around 6.9330 against the dollar. If you look at the Australian dollar is firmer also this morning. We had some building approvals data, which was up by 7% in December versus forecast of a 5% increase, and that represents a partial rebound from the big drop we had the prior month of 11.8%, and suggests that the Australian economy is not doing so as bad as had been feared following that contraction in the Australian GDP we saw in the third quarter. So that's been positive for the Aussie, and also worth mentioning that the Aussie is up around 1.5% so far this year in 2017, although we did have a warning by the Australian government this morning in a report that said that the Australian government is projecting a drop in iron ore prices over the next 2 years, and that could be negative for the Aussie because the Australian currency is very dependent on iron ore prices, given that it's a major export. Another commodity currency, the Canadian dollar, it's basically fallen back since Friday's surge. The Canadian dollar did hit a near 4-week high on Friday of 1.3176. It's back above 1.32, and that's mainly because again the stronger US dollar, but that spike on Friday that came following a very strong data out of Canada. The Canadian economy added 53.7 thousand jobs in December, which was much stronger than forecast, that there would be no increase in new jobs added. There was also positive trade data which showed that Canada recorded its first trade surplus in over 2 years in November. So all of that boosted the loonie on Friday, although it's fallen back a little bit today, as I said, mainly because of the stronger US dollar. Let's have a look at today's calendar. We can see the Australian data there already out, and also we had German trade and industrial production figures. German industrial production figures were a little bit below estimates. Exports were better than expected though. We also had UK house prices. Those were also positive, although didn't have too much of an impact on the pound. Coming up later today, we've got the Eurozone Centix index and the unemployment figures for November. The US market will be fairly quiet, though we don't have any major data coming out of the US, although we will have speakers, Fed speakers. We're going to have the Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren and the Atlanta Fed President Dennis Lockhart expected to speak later today, so that may have some impact on the dollar. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.